Hello everyone. I hope life is treating you kindly. I'm Lubomira and thank you for joining me today. Welcome to all my crafty friends new and returning. I'm always excited for this time when we get together. If you're new to my channel, I'm glad you found your way over here and I invite you to check out more of my videos. I love sharing my projects with you all and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend a few crafty moments with me. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. By hitting that little bell, you'll get notified every time I post something new and you won't miss out on any of the crafty goodness. Friends, today's video is the first of hopefully many. I'm affectionately referring to this series as Fake It Until You Make It. I do not have the budget nor the space to own every single craft product that my eyes see and my heart covets. And I hope that I'm not the only one in this boat. So until the day I make it in life or win the lottery, whichever comes first, I will be challenging myself to recreate the popular trends using my own stash. I hope you'll join me on this little crafting adventure. It should be fun. Now don't worry, we're still going to be making Dollar Tree cards. I'll continue to release those videos on Friday as I usually do. But I have a craft room full of supplies that need some love too, and this series will focus on other supplies than just the Dollar Tree ones. I'll be putting more focus on things that we have than newer items, so it's still going to have the budget-friendly undertone. I hope to be releasing these videos once or twice a month, maybe more, based off new products that are being released, but using my own stash to dupe them. The first thing I'm going to be working on is inspired by the Spellbinders Emboss and Cut Embossing Folders, more specifically the Floral for You embossing folder. I really love these folders and the concept behind them is pretty neat. This one is from a few months back, but there have been more releases in this type of style since. I think the newest one has mushrooms on it, which is really cute. But anyway, I think these are super pretty, but again, from a practical point and economical one, I want to hold off on adding this product to my stash. Having said that though, I do love how this one looks and I want to see if I can come up with an alternative with the items I already have. To recreate the look of this embossing folder, I'm going to be looking at a few details. My goal is to capture the feel of it and not necessarily a direct copy. I hope that makes sense. The first is the look of one focal element. The embossing folder creates a beautiful scene and the pieces of it flow into each other, creating one-dimensional focal point. Ideally, that's what I'm hoping to recreate. The second element is the arch. I love the look of the arch and how it frames everything. I think we can recreate something similar using some arch dies. And the third element is the dimension created by the folder and the lovely floral pattern. I think we can find an alternative in another folder that I already have to create this. Now that we've broken down the design of this product and we have a direction that we want to go in, let's get into a video and actually create something. To recap, we are going to try to recreate a focal element that looks like a single solid seamless piece. It's going to include a frame and there's going to be dimensional flowers in it. To start off, I'm creating an ink blended background. I want this card to have color and I think that we can use the color as camouflage in the construction of our focal element later on as we make this card. I'm using 4 colors of Distress Oxide inks. I'm using Scattered Straw, Dried Marigold, Worn Lipstick, and Seedless Preserves. When I ink blend, I divide the panel in my head into equal parts corresponding to the amount of colors I have to work with. In this case, I have 4 colors, so I break up my panel into 4 parts, 1 for each color. At first, I'm not too worried about creating the seamless blend. I work on just getting the colors down. The color will be truest to its shade towards the middle of each zone, while the edges will feather out and blend into the colors above and below, with the exception of the very first color and the last. Once I have the color down, I go back over the area where the colors meet, first with the lighter color and then slightly with the darker to smooth out the blend. I keep going back and forth between the two until I'm satisfied with the transition. Now you do want to be careful because not all paper can withstand all the ink and the friction from the blending. I tend to keep the ink heaviest in the middle of the color zone and lighter on the outskirts so that I can blend the lighter color more easily. I'm not taping my panel down, which allows me to move it around and really work on the blend from all angles. To avoid getting inky fingers and fingerprints, I'm just using a post-it note to help me hold down the panel. I'm also wiping my workspace from time to time to prevent the extra ink from mixing onto my brushes and getting onto the panel in places I don't want it to be. Next, I'm going to add some shimmer to the panel. I'm in love with the Distress Spritz sprays and more specifically, the Fossilized Amber. This adds a golden glow to your projects. You can be very aggressive with the application and create pools of splatter, or you can do a softer spritz that gives an almost pearl effect. Both are super pretty. I'm sure there are more scientific approaches to using them. I spray at an angle so that the color tends to spread out rather than directly at the paper. And then I just add splotches using the uncapped nozzle. I really love the arch in the original inspiration. To create that, I'm going to die cut a frame using some nesting arches. I have the scrapbook.com ones, and I'm using the 3rd and 4th largest from the set. I don't know if it's just me, but sometimes dies cling to me, so I use a tool to help me set them in place. This time, I'm just using a poking tool. I want to make sure that the arches keep the same shape and don't move. Washi tape will hold them in place for me, and I die cut everything off camera. When I have my arches die cut, I want to be careful not to pull the dies apart because I want to duplicate the frame several times using white cardstock. I just pop everything out and set them aside to work on the white cardstock pieces that I'll be using to build up the dimension in the frame. I'm going to die cut more of these frames than less, around 5 or 6, and also one of the largest arches on its own when I'm done. With all my die cutting done, I can move on to the next part. I went through my embossing folders and I narrowed down the look I was going for to these 2 folders, both from Altenew. They both have flower and bird elements. I want the background to have some open space like the inspiration. I'm going to use the center of my arch to determine which I like better. I think I'm going to go with this one, the Blooming Arch folder. It just appeals to me more. I place the arch into the folder where I want it and run it through my machine off camera. Now that I have all my parts, I can put them together. First, I layer all the extra frames. I ended up using 5 layers to really build up the dimension in this frame. Because we were so careful about making sure the dies stayed in place when we were die cutting, these frames are identical and go together really easily using some liquid glue. The white frame stands out against the ink blended background and it breaks up that seamless look that we're going for. So this is where the color comes into play that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to run my brushes, no need to re-ink. I'm just using the residual ink on the brushes and I'm going to add color to the inside and outside of my frame. I'm just roughly adding the colors so that it transitions more or less in the same places as my embossed panel. There's also a gap around the inner embossed panel and the frame. It's not unusual for a die cut piece to somewhat shrink when it's embossed. Keep in mind that the paper has been pressed and pulled into a 3D design, so it may displace some of the proportions in the paper. I anticipated this, which is why I die cut the larger arch to serve as a backing. I ink blend along the edge of the backing arch, so if there are gaps, it blends seamlessly in, as I did with the frames earlier. I make sure everything fits and the colors work together. I like what I see, and using glue, I pop the embossed panel into the frame and secure it in place. I like adding embossed frames around my card panel using my scoreboard. I think it gives the card a more finished look. It's quick and simple to do. I start towards the middle of my panel at the 1/4 inch mark and rotate the panel around, extending the score mark each time toward the edge until my score lines meet at the corner. When I'm done with my panel, I glue it to my card base and then attach the focal arch to the front. Next comes the sentiment. I chose Happy Birthday to You from the Birthday Wishes stamp set from Waffle Flower. I want to say this is from a newer release and it was hanging out on my desk. I like the size of the greeting for this card and I didn't want to go rummaging for too long. Sometimes having something at arm's reach determines whether or not it's going to be used. Of course, use what you have on hand. I stamped the word on a leftover piece of white cardstock from our Arches in black pigment ink. When I'm done, I go ahead and apply clear embossing powder to the wet ink and heat set it with my heat gun. I have the coordinating dies for this set and I used them to cut out the greeting. I do have an electronic cutting machine that does most of my die cutting, but I still prefer using metal dies for sentiments. For the most part though, I don't buy coordinating dies. Once the sentiment is ready, I attach the greeting to the front of the card using foam squares. We're almost done. To finish this card, I add some metallic gold pearls to the card front. You guessed it, for some extra shine. And that's it for this card. So how did we do? Did we do what we set out to do? We have a card with a seamless, solid looking focal point. Check. We have arches that frame the whole thing. Check. And we have a dimensional floral scene. Check. I really love this look, and what's nice about it is you are not limited by only one scene. You can switch it out and create other variations of this window. What do you think? Do you think this was a successful dupe? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and please leave me those comments. I really do love hearing from you. I hope you'll join me for another project next time. Until then, have a great week, and I hope life treats you kindly. Take care. Bye.